Hey everybody, King Kong 9100 here, back from another long hiatus. Just wanting to give you guys an update as to what my thoughts are in the world of Godzilla and Kong news. Now we got a lot to unpack here. Apologies for going dark, as school and life have been quite the uphill battle. But to help with that is our boys Godzilla and King Kong. Now there's just so much to talk about. We got Godzilla X Kong The New Empire, Godzilla Minus One, the Justice League and Monsterverse crossover, Godzilla X Kong The Hunted, and some brief channel updates. This video is going to be me just giving you guys an update as to what a lot of my thoughts are on those topics, as well as letting you guys know what I have in the works. So with that said, get your beast gloves and pink spines ready for some kaiju action. So the first thing I like to discuss is Godzilla Minus One, since that is the first film that came out recently. I've been incredibly MIA due to my classes and just priorities in life shifting, which I'll touch on later, but I did in fact get a chance to see it. So what were my thoughts? Well, I loved it. It took some time to process it, and until I actually come out with a fully fledged review of the film, I'd like to just touch on a couple brief reasons as to why I personally enjoyed it. Now, for starters, this was such an incredibly beautiful and emotionally complex film. It kept, a lot about Godzilla that we love, such as him being a force of nature, and it just cranked it to 100. It really just made Godzilla feel like a force of evil, yet if you took a glance at what exactly causes him to lash out, you begin to realize he has intent and reason behind his actions. Now, I would have liked for the film to have touched more on things like why Godzilla does what he does. I feel like if we saw his family get mutated or his home being destroyed, that would have added a lot more depth to him. The way he was handled was still just incredibly well done. I have no complaints in regards to it, just little add-ons or ideas as to how to improve the already high bar that has been set. The design is amazing. I love the scalier and spikier design, while also keeping his silhouette recognizable. The music was really nicely done. I think this Godzilla film has the best human characters by far. We have Shikishima, who was written as a character meant to basically just break the mold of the typical Japanese hero who's not to question being a kamikaze pilot or just only serve politicians rather than his own well-being. Him wrestling with that ideology and just fighting for his family rather than culture and politics helps break the stereotype of the soldier meant to just bite his tongue and remain silent when told to follow orders. At least that's what I gathered. It could be wrong or up for debate, I'm sure. I definitely need to rewatch the film multiple times, but I personally enjoyed his character a lot, and I could relate to him at least having to hide his emotions in order to be strong for those around him. The relationship he had with Noriko was especially beautiful, because it didn't fall into any cliches or typical romantic dramas. It felt so real and to the point, and the two eventually falling in love is completely believable. And one thing I especially admire about their romance is how she never abandons him during his mental breakdown or his emotional states. She tells him to let go and reminds him that she's always going to be there for him. There's a sense of warmth and comfort that you never really find in these Godzilla films. And while I personally get that, from many other kinds of films, I do think it has a place, especially in kaiju films. Because these films, they talk about war and pain and violence, so why can't it talk about love and kindness and good? There's a balance, and I think kaiju films can reflect on that through their characters, both human and monster. The VFX and CGI were just absolutely stunning in this film, and I do love that the artists all got the recognition and love that they deserved, I remember I was seeing on Instagram, they would have special shout-out posts to specific artists in the who were involved with the project, and that was just so beautiful to see, especially being somebody who's trying to get into the field of 3D animation and CGI. So yeah, that was really cool. I personally really enjoy scenes that feel both realistic, yet have a certain color palette and style that evokes an appealing look to the viewer's eyes. Like the ocean scene, it wasn't dull looking. The colors, they were vibrant, the ocean felt real. Godzilla felt as if he were truly in the scene thanks to, again, the amazing CGI models and the water sims that I can't even imagine how long must have taken to figure out. Just so many amazing characters and VFX and CGI. The music, the acting, the writing, the cinematography, it was all incredibly well done. And yeah, some things I feel could have improved slightly is just seeing Godzilla, as I mentioned, being less mutated and more of a natural dinosaur-looking creature. If we saw his home get destroyed and his species mainly get wiped out, him becoming horribly disfigured and mutated, that would add a lot more complexity to him. And Toho does really go in through and just try to limit how much character and emotion Godzilla is given. And I actually have like a couple inside sources mention this to me, so this is confirmed. And like we also saw it with Wingard trying to make Godzilla laugh more and just have more emotions in GVK. Like you can tell there is interference going on there. I mean, personally, I heard about a comic that served to give Godzilla emotional character arcs, something like we've never ever seen before. And then it was just outright cut because it was a little too humanizing. And again, while this is a conversation entirely on its own, I personally, I do think these films can give Godzilla a lot more character and humanity while retaining his god status and making him a powerhouse and villain that audiences can empathize with and understand. Cutting out the line, "that monster will never forgive us," was an absolute tragedy, in my opinion. Like, it could have been the log line for the film and, this poster quote. It was such a good line. And I want to mention that I am so glad this film ended up, with such an uplifting, positive note, rather than being just all doom and gloom. Because a lot of these movies have that problem, where it tries too hard to be depressing, and it's there's more to life than just pain and sadness, So, especially with Godzilla films, we're going there to see, obviously, Godzilla, but we also want good humans and characters, and just, we don't want to be depressed leaving the movie. Not that every film has to be this cheery, every single positive MCU kind of film full of comedy and one-liners and witty banter, but there's a balance, And that's what I think Godzilla Minus One did very well, is there was a lot of comedy that was well integrated, and there were moments of levity to help counteract those pits of despair that it throws us in. And it's just, like I said, it's a great way to balance out the audience's emotional state when viewing the film. So, all in all, Godzilla Minus One. This was just an all-around great film. I cannot wait to go into further depth with it soon. And yeah, I'm gonna give it a couple more rewatches when I have the time, and once I fully process it, then I will go into it a lot deeper, and I'll just discuss the film with a lot more depth, basically. Overall, one of, if not my outright favorite Godzilla films, and I'm so glad to see it help Godzilla thrive as a franchise. Now, for what is I assume to be the main reason everyone is here, Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, or Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. There is a lot to unpack here. Now, I am super excited for this film. If there is one thing Adam Wingard does right, it's at least delivering on the monster action. The CGI looks really good in most of what we've seen, and yeah, sure, it does look a tad bit spotty every now and then, but it looks amazing for most of it. And it only took 10 years, but with Wingard helming this film, I'm just glad we're getting fights that look a lot more entertaining than anything we've gotten before. 2014, Skull Island, King of the Monsters, all those films just had such boring action to me. It isn't until Godzilla vs. Kong where I find myself actually looking to watch the fights on their own for the sheer spectacle. In this film, it's looking as if the fight choreography is going to be a lot more like how I personally would go about it. We got Scar King throwing a building with his whip? Sign me up. I've been wanting to see kaiju use their environments like that since 2014. Godzilla spearing Kong through the pyramid, Kong using uppercuts. These are all things I wish we got in Godzilla vs. Kong. Does it look fully realized? I can't really say yet. The film isn't out. But in terms of the monster action, from what we have been seeing, this film just looks to have really good set design and environments and CGI. That CGI looks strong for pretty much most of the film. And the choreography, it looks a lot better. The monster screen time, something that is very important for this franchise, seems to actually be a lot longer. It's looking like a very strong stepping stone as to the kinds of films we should be getting in this series. Do I wish we got it sooner? Sure, but there's no point in moping about the past since this is our future now. I feel like Pacific Rim and even its sequel had such entertaining fights. The Skull Island anime has amazing fights. It's really important to me that we get fight scenes that are enthralling and immersive enough to keep the audience's attention. Because at the end of the day, it's what we are paying for, and I cannot stress that enough. So, what looks good is the monster action. Alright, let's talk about what I am not as excited for. Now, since my channel is primarily based on King Kong and Godzilla, I want to talk about them first. With Kong, there's the Beast Glove. Honestly, I don't think it's that cool. It just looks like an unoriginal Infinity Gauntlet. He should have just crafted his own weapons, a bone shield, dorsal plate knuckle dusters, his own form of a whip. All of those would have been really cool. And I understand the glove also gives Kong a major boost in power, which I will be talking about in a second, but regardless, Kong should be able to do all of this naturally. Think about it, if his primary ability is his strength, speed, and intelligence, he should be able to use that to his advantage. And I do like seeing Kong take a lot more damage from other monsters. We've seen him taking hits from Shimo and a Godzilla that is said to be 20 times more powerful. Like, it's all good news. But I don't like the idea of him only being able to do this solely because of the glove injecting him with this power and strength. Or him just losing his arm entirely, which I hope to God that doesn't happen and that he breaks the glove off at the end or something. But yeah, I mean, after GVK, like, I do think Kong needs some more fights that he can win on his own, especially against opponents that can give Godzilla a run for his money. It doesn't have to mean Kong is more powerful than him, that's not at all what I'm implying, but it would definitely give the audience more of a reason to root for him. And plus, with Kong being in the Hollow Earth, he should be a lot more in his prime, but it seems like Wingard is taking him into the old man that is grouchy territory. Which sucks. You know, Kong and Goji should both be fresh and in their primes. Kong especially, since we don't have a whole lot of time with him in his adult state. I feel like his beard, even like, it looks really good in some shots, and then in other shots, it's kind of a mess. Not really any like shape or definition, it's just a bunch of like gray cotton ball fur, you know. Minor nitpick right there, but I mean, it's worth a mention because it adds to his oldness, I guess. But the Beast Glove, I personally would have done something different in regards to him crafting his own weapons in substitution of this, and especially showing that he isn't injected with steroids, but instead is just much stronger and more durable by being in the Hollow Earth. Then there's the Metal Tooth, right? Kong rarely uses his bite in the Monsterverse, save for like the anime, so I guess we're not missing much. But this film should have instead just had him use his teeth a lot more. If anything, him being in the Hollow Earth could have also served to make them, like, I don't know, slightly more jagged and make his fangs stronger so that he can use those massive canines of his to pierce kaiju that are insanely durable, like Shimo or Godzilla. I don't think the Metal Tooth is needed at all. I think it looks dumb. But hey, I mean, if the action is really good and Kong has a lot more time to shine as a powerful kaiju, I can try to look past it. I do hope he's able to regenerate it or grow it back, but sadly it doesn't look like that would be the case. But regardless though, like I said, you know, seeing Kong be a lot more powerful and dexterous is going to be really fun. And as long as he isn't being absolutely pissed on in his base form, like, I think that would be good. Then there's Godzilla. I love the redesign. A lot of the changes that Wingard is making are things I would have changed too. Like, I love him being spikier. He looks more menacing. The spines looking more like 2014, but larger and more jagged is something I would have done as well. We got him being slimmer with a more puffed out chest. Hell yeah. His tail having much larger spikes towards the end of it. Dude, I have been drawing that since I was like a freshman in high school. Like, sign me up. I love Godzilla's new look. Pink is a cool color. I don't care why I don't understand why people are like, oh, it looks so stupid. It's fine, you know? I'm all for the design changes. I think they're stunning. What I do think would look a bit better is Godzilla's stomach not being as sucked in towards the lower half. I do think Wingard went a bit overboard. He went a little too far with that. But that's really it, in my opinion. Only thing I would add is the tip of the 2014 tail again, since that looked so much better than Michael Dougherty just rounding out the tail in 2019. You know, the 2014 tail looked sharper and more like a death sentence than that rounded 2019 end. I also think it would be good to have like the tail spikes that are larger ease into their size a bit more, and also make sure that all rows of plates are larger rather than like the typical thagomizers we would see on a Stegosaurus where they aren't as large in the middle row. But I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. Godzilla being 20 times more powerful is amazing. I love seeing him fight more like a wrestler, because you have him fight like that and you mix in some more animalistic moves like more bites and him comboing tail whips into like claw swipes, and then we have a Godzilla with a definitive fighting style. So yeah, I mean, I'm just really excited to see more of him in this film. Now, for films like this, monsters easily need like 40 minutes of screen time, and well over that, to give audiences a chance to connect more while mixing in good fight scenes and just scenes where they are emotionally developed through visual storytelling. Now, Shimo and Scar King. Scar King is a badass. It's a really cool idea, and I do think he could be a lot larger, like probably around 415 to 470 feet tall. Like, if he's gonna be lanky, he's still gotta be a physical threat. There is some really good pieces of fan art and animations that came out back when the title reveal was dropped, and they showed Scar King being a huge threat to Kong and Godzilla. And through his experience and his skill and his powers, this was something even KDM teased, and while the close-ups like showed his eyes glowing, I'm not so sure the dude actually has powers. Not to call KDM a liar, but in regards to that specific statement, he probably wasn't talking about actual powers, rather the whip and the mind control device on it. But, we're also excited to see this villain give a good fight. Kong and Godzilla eventually, they should be able to overwhelm him, and then he busts out Shimo, but we still need to see why he's a threat. If he's able to show he's durable, strong to the point where he's ragdolling Goji and Kong, and just kind of go back and forth with both of them in a way we have never seen Titans go at it before, it would solidify that, okay, this dude can throw hands. And that should all be without the whip. And then he gets the whip, goes back and forth with them a bit more, then reveals he has powers like possibly electricity, then he gets overwhelmed, then he busts out Shimo. All this like then this happened. But I mean, that's how I would have done Scar King. It just seems a lot more entertaining. But it seems like he's really the one that's getting beaten up throughout the film from what we've seen. I'm holding out hope that he actually puts up more of a physical fight against Kong and Godzilla. But yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see. I also would have personally tried to make him look a bit more war-torn and battle-hardened, and also tried to have made him resemble 62 Kong a lot more, so it's almost as if our definitive Kong is fighting a very important past Kong, and in terms of symbolism and stuff, solidifying this Kong as our definitive one would be really cool. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I've done a major pre-write for this film, and it isn't at all what many people think it would be, but I do think it would handle Scar King a lot better. And just, a lot more differently from what we've been seeing so far. But with that said, though, like I said, the film, it isn't even out yet. And when it does come out soon, I can't wait to see how he's handled. The fight between him and Kong looks really cool. And seeing him, wrap himself around Kong with the whip is so vicious. And I want to see more of that. With Shimo, we haven't even seen much of this guy yet. Or this gal. But I am curious as to how, she's being mind controlled. It might be a crystal that's part of her own body, or maybe it's just something she's scared of by Scar King, using it against her violently. I don't know, but either way, I do think the design, it's a bit weird at first. It grows on you, but we haven't seen it in the film yet. But when it was first revealed, it looked more like a snapping turtle head, and it was all smooth. And yeah, while I do think the face could use a little more spikes, like I said, we haven't seen it in the film yet. So, with the glimpses from the trailers, it does look really cool, though, and it's growing on me a lot, and I am excited. I also love that she's huge as hell, and she's a massively powerful threat. Give me more of that in these films. Okay, now, I want to quickly talk about power scaling. Most of the rest of this isn't really going to have to do with Godzilla X Kong, except for the end segment, but yeah, if you guys have stuck with me for a while now, you know that there was a period of time where I got into a lot of King Kong versus Godzilla debates. A lot of my points definitely were not accurate. I've debated people who also haven't had accurate points, but the reason I debated a lot was because I felt as though many people were underselling King Kong as a character. And a lot of my points were based on speculation. What if King Kong had the same kind of durability against the atomic breath he did in 1962? What if he had the strength proportional to some gorillas where he can lift between 4 to 8 times his own weight? Or some calculations done on a stupid rock in 2017 with a non-fully grown Kong? What if he were fast enough to evade the atomic breath? Dexterous and agile enough to use the city or Skull Island to his advantage in a fight? That is a lot of speculation. Those are a lot of what-ifs. And it was a really hard time to debate all those points when we didn't even have an adult Kong until the film and tie-in comic came out, I believe in 2021. So it's just how can you really argue that? So some of that came true. Kong being strong enough to ragdoll Godzilla, for instance. Apparently Mechagodzilla can do it, and Kong is stronger than him at 50% physically. Him being able to react to and dodge the atomic breath came true. Him using the environment to his advantage came true. And then there were things that didn't come true, like his durability. Taking hits of the atomic breath carrying over from the 62 film? No, that stayed in the past. And that's fine. Ultimately, what I wanted from GVK were just really good fight scenes. And I do think him being durable enough to take shots of the breath would have made the fights more intense and awesome, while retaining the main idea that Godzilla is the more powerful. All I wanted is a shifting power dynamic with Godzilla ultimately coming out on top without underselling or shitting on Kong. And you can see this in my rewrite for the film, which I am very, very proud of, mainly due to how I handle the characters and the monster action. But growing up and also being a young kid who didn't really know how to fully debate, it caused me to have a tarnished reputation and name in the fandom. And I mean, you see titles of videos like the why Kong's gonna get his ass beat or why King Kong sucks, and you want to stand up for your favorite character, you know? And I would do the same for Goji as well, because they're both my favorite monsters of all time. So engaging in those power scaling debates is something you need to be really careful for. Most people who don't like me in this fandom don't like me because of those old videos I did, and I completely understand, it's okay. But as someone who's much older, I learned that debating isn't really as fun anymore because the monster stats seem to be fluctuating every day. Like, there seems to be new information coming out, new calculations, new metas, a lot of power scaling news that can have your favorite monster go from being powerful to just fodder, like within an instant. And I think a lot of this has to do with the power scaling community, not everyone, but a majority of what I've seen, being very toxic. They're like Instagram comment sections, you know, just like this field of toxicity, and it's people insulting each other, saying the worst kinds of things because one person's calculations don't line up with someone else's. You know, a person can go from being a well-respected scaler to being a mindless chump just because a new meta has come out or like a new calculation has come out that just completely proves the old one wrong. Like, come on, people work with what they have at the time, and at the end of the day, none of it should really matter. Like, the stats are going to be inconsistent like they have been in the Monsterverse. Not a lot of care goes into the lore of the Monsterverse in terms of the scaling, and if you want some examples, here's a little tangent we're about to go on. How about the fact that an ancient, weaker Goji apparently defeated Ghidorah, but then a modern, stronger one was the underdog against the nerfed Ghidorah? Like, did Ghidorah get stronger in the ice? How the hell does that work? How did Kong's axe, that was fully charged, cut into Godzilla's leg, but not even leave a scratch on his skull? I thought it detonated before impact, which would make a lot more sense, but since then it was confirmed to have hit him. So how does that not even leave a scratch if it did hit Godzilla's face? We saw it embedded into a larger skull in the Hollow Earth, so why is there such inconsistency there? Like, even if it can be argued that the axe cutting into Godzilla's leg is meat on bone versus it just cutting into his head just being, like, bone, it still should have left a mark since meat is what's on top, you know? So that's what I don't understand. We have, like, Godzilla's atomic breath in the Monsterverse. It's all over the place. Godzilla's beam supposedly can output kilotons of TNT, but he's still able to blast a hole into the damn core of the Earth and through a vortex comparable to a pulsar. So that would make no sense. And I also don't think it's even been confirmed what his atomic breath temperature is. Apparently, Mechagodzilla's beam is said to be 1,000 times stronger than Goji's too, going by the official Japan stats. Yet in the film, we see a nerfed atomic breath stalemate the proton scream for a while before it eventually beats it. The intro credits to GVK. Everyone knows this had the most botched stats ever, ranging from Godzilla's bone density realistically not being enough to allow him to walk without collapsing instantaneously, to Ghidorah having botched height estimates that don't line up with what we were given. And then Godzilla's weight suddenly being shot up to 164,000 tons. It got to the point where Wingard had to confirm this wasn't true and that the credits were rushed. You know, there's things like that. And another issue is just how wide the ranges of power are between all the monsters. Like, monsters can low diff somebody and then high diff that same one under different kinds of conditions, like power-ups or not being nerfed through their environments. And that's just another thing, you know, there's the phrasing. A lot of scalers have been making versus videos that just have such strong language in regards to one monster getting shat on, which I'll talk about in a sec. But a lot of those points I brought up, I'm sure have some reasoning or points of debate behind them. I'm not making a stance on any of those points. I'm just pointing out that there are inconsistencies. And the thing is, a lot of this isn't going to change. It's just going to get worse and worse because with more films and different creative teams on this project, the more inconsistencies we're going to find due to there not being a person to fully oversee everything and pay special attention to things like power scaling. Drew Edward Johnson, for instance, like, I don't think he even remembered Scylla having a shell in King of the Monsters. He was asked about it and he was like, what shell? Oh, the one in King of the Monsters. Oh, she shed it somehow. Like, dude, you'd think like Legendary having a mythology department entirely dedicated to that specific thing would be enough to have some consistency across these films. But for some reason, that just is not the case, and that's what we all need to realize as fans. I have seen people debate that evolved Goji is more powerful than Burning Godzilla and vice versa. That fluctuates every day. I've seen people say Beast Glove Kong can wear Ghidorah's neck like a scarf, something nobody would have ever even thought of back in 2021, and now suddenly that's a point of debate. How is Scar King able to go against Beast Glove Kong since he was shown to be much weaker than regular base Kong? Apparently he can take hits from evolved Goji like a tail whip directly to his spine, and from Shimo as well, and it just makes no sense. And I guarantee that all those hot takes will change drastically in the future with more time passing and more calculations and metas dropping, as well as the novel coming out. But why am I talking about all of this? Because I don't want to see this community constantly at war over these power scaling debates. I don't think fans should be ripping each other apart and insulting each other based on lore and stats that differ almost every day. I don't want to see people make the same mistakes I did when I was younger, you know? Like, that can just add to things like depression, and it weighs heavy on somebody. And all we want to do is just enjoy these films. These films should never, ever become a problem for us, you know? If you have to sigh and then load up something like a discussion board or YouTube pages related to King Kong or Godzilla, then you're doing it wrong. They should be something that excites all of us, not saddens us. So, if power scalers and fans in general can start by using more speculative statements, a lot of this can be avoided. And knowing the lore is inconsistent every now and then is important. Coming from a place of feelings would help a lot. Like, for instance, I think it would be a lot cooler and serve the story if Kong were more powerful than GVK. I'm not saying he is more powerful. I'm not taking a stance on the King Kong versus Godzilla debate or anything. I'm just saying that what I personally would have enjoyed a lot more as a fan of both monsters is seeing Kong have been more powerful before eventually getting beaten by Godzilla. When it comes to debating, right, a lot of the low diff, high diff fodder, debunking this YouTuber, this monster sweeps talk, all those terms and stuff, it seems so condescending, and it's like a put down to other members of the community who are fans of certain monsters. I hope that makes sense. I'm not trying to ramble or sound like I'm complaining, because that's easy to do, but I want to at least talk about solutions, and there's issues on both sides, you know, the studio and the fans. So I think on the studio's part, if they can start to be more consistent with stats and with power levels, it would make debating a lot more fun for fans. And on the fans' parts, if they can all use more speculative statements, not rip each other to shreds, recognize that the lore is inconsistent, and just have fun with it, then this already niche community can become much tighter and closer. And it can be less toxic, which I think is good for everybody. And we all need to just relax, you know, we all need each other. So just wait for the film and wait for the novel to come out, and everyone can just hang out, take it easy, and just enjoy the film for what it is. Other than the monster action, getting back to the film, the only thing I am worried about is the humans not being likable or just being shallow. Now, I'm sure these characters are just going to be fun, shallowly written characters like in GVK, and that's fine. I mean, it sucks. I think these films really, really need to also prioritize good character writing like in Minus One, but if that is too much to ask for, then at least we're getting good kaiju action. Again, ideally, these films would have both be really well done, and we shouldn't have to sacrifice one for the other. We should just be given both as the bare minimum and default. But I've been ripped up in the comments before because I wanted people to ask for better. Then Minus One comes out, and what happens? It's praised for its brilliant character writing and monster action. It's praised for having that balance being found. I'm telling you guys, the Monsterverse has the potential. It just needs the effort to be fully realized. Having a lot better monster action is good news, though. It's a major stepping stone in the franchise, I'll say that. So, all in all, I know there was a big power scaling, like, you know, little sidetrack ramble thing, but all in all, Godzilla X Kong, I am very excited for it. I'm looking forward to seeing the monster action and how they've improved it. Yes, I'm worried about the humans being blandly written, but hey, hopefully in the next Monsterverse film they can be better written, and we can still retain and improve upon this level of monster action and screen time. Now, I just wanted to take a brief moment and touch on the crossover between the Justice League and the Monsterverse. Now, for those who don't know, I am somewhat of a Superman fan. I love the shows Smallville, Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and Superman and Lois. And I'm really excited for the new Superman film since I'm hoping for a Dean Cain-esque, uplifting, and optimistic Superman film. But yeah, we just had the Monsterverse and Justice League crossover. So far, I think it's really cool. There is one more issue left, but some of the things that I think are really cool to see are the monsters actually being a threat to the superheroes. Like, come on, realistically, Superman should just be able to speed blitz Godzilla and just take him to space. But like I said, you know, but I like that it isn't that simple. I do think Godzilla outright killing Superman in the first issue is batshit insane, though. The kaiju taking hits from these superpowered beings is very impressive, though, power-wise. And I feel like Kong hasn't done shit this entire comic. And I do hope to see him taking more hits from like Superman and Supergirl more. I feel like this run definitely needed to be at least double its length from 7 issues to 14. We need more time, you know? And I want to see Kong fight with Superman. I want to see Godzilla take on Batman. We want more of that stuff. Even seeing the monsters fight each other would be so cool. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it ends. I was getting pretty tired of the shitty tracings though in that first issue. Like, good lord, where is Zid when you need him? At least he'll make tracings look really good. But yeah, I mean, overall, you know, the Justice League Monsterverse crossover seems really exciting, and I'm interested to see how it ends. Alrighty, finally we have Godzilla X Kong the Hunted. This comic was a lot less entertaining to me than Kingdom Kong or Godzilla Dominion. The monster fights seemed weaker, and I didn't really dig the mecha design all that much. Seeing Kong adapt to the Hollow Earth was fine and all, but it didn't really seem as riveting as it could have been. And Godzilla chasing Scylla was fine, but we should have seen him fight more monsters before that. Like, cool, we got Kong looking at cave paintings again. He already did that in Kingdom Kong, teasing his fight with Goji. Drew Johnson, great guy and all, but I don't know when it was decided that he's going to be the Godzilla artist of the Monsterverse. Like, he doesn't really draw Goji that great, and he just traces all the time. If you ask me, Zid should have just done this whole thing. But yeah, like, it was fine, you know? Better than Awakening, I guess. Nothing really stuck out to me aside from the art being great when Zid drew it. Story-wise, there is nothing going on here. Like, it really could have just been rewritten. Just have Kong fight another badass Hollow Earth Titan or something. Have Godzilla also do the same, but with a surface threat, and then have him find Scylla by the end of it to tie it in with the film. That's just my ideas on how to improve it, but overall, just very mediocre comic, but hey, amazing art. Thanks to Zid. And that is pretty much it for this video, everybody. If you want to stick around for a really quick channel update, then feel free. If not, video's over, go home. I'm just kidding. I wanted to discuss Legacy of Monsters, but I haven't finished that show yet. I did see all the fight scenes, and of course, you know, I'm disappointed that there's such little Goji action. I'll discuss it a bit more when I actually finish the show, but I'm 90% positive that isn't going to change as much as I want it to. But, I mean, overall, it's decent so far. As for the channel itself, I just wanted to let you guys know that, yeah, my schoolwork has been making me quite busy. I finished that major freelance project I was doing since last year, and that took a lot longer due to my life getting in the way. I feel bad for using the same excuse, but, you know, I mean, this is just all things that we're learning as we grow older. But as I get older, you know, I've been getting better with time management, and it's been kind of hard because I just moved into my own apartment and I'm living alone and I'm pretty far from my family, so it's taking some getting used to, I'll say that. But yeah, I'm, you know, majoring in 3D animation and VFX, and I'm still animating. It's just for school now. Godzilla vs. Scylla, for instance, is fully animated, but because I learned so much during my last project, I want to apply everything I learned to Godzilla vs. Scylla when I have the time, so it can look as good as it can. So yeah, I mean, until I have more time for that project and for the Hollow Earth battle, those projects are going to be on hold, at least until summer. I definitely plan on finishing Godzilla vs. Scylla during summer. And if you're rolling your eyes, then I don't blame you in the slightest, man. I really don't. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping I have more time on my hands over these next few months to work on those animations, and I will keep you all updated. I post pretty frequently on Instagram on my stories, but other than that, yeah, I mean, I'm very sorry to have been so MIA recently. It's just been grind, you know. But thank you guys so much for all your understanding and for the love and support I've been getting. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are on all the topics I discussed down below, and yeah, I will see you all in the next video. Until then, this has been King Kong 9700 signing out. See ya.